I'm Owen, I'm a journalist and an author. I think Israel kills journalists because it's trying to hide its horrendous war crimes from the world. It is committing some of the worst atrocities of the 21st century. I firmly believe it is committing genocide based on the deeds and the words of the Israeli state. And the eyes and ears to the world are those courageous Palestinian journalists in Gaza who've been slaughtered in the biggest murder of journalists in recorded history. It's deliberate, it's targeted, and it's clearly to try and stop the world seeing the scale. And only thanks to the courageous work of those surviving journalists do we know what's happening. But let's be clear, they did this on purpose. They've waged war on journalists, and it's a scandal that other Western journalists haven't spoken out, because this is a massacre in the service of covering up a crime.
Why do you think Western journalists and other journalists haven't spoken out?
I think a lot of Western journalists haven't spoken out partly because of racism. I don't think they see Palestinians as equal human beings. They don't like being told that. But that's the way they behave. I mean, if you don't want to be accused of treating people as lesser human beings than you, then don't act as though you think they're lesser human beings. So I think rampant, systemic anti-Palestinian racism throughout the Western media, which is so lacking in subtlety, that they might as well, a lot of them, just be wearing jumpers saying they don't really think Palestinians are human beings. And I think subservience to Western foreign policy, and also the fact that they are in some cases scared because they think they'll get smeared for being critical of Israel, so they're cowards. So I think it's a mixture of bigotry, racism and cowardice.
The journalists in Gaza, what do you think their coverage and what they've done throughout this war or genocide, what do you think that means for the industry of journalism?
I think the journalists of Gaza have shown journalists what journalism really is. It is telling the truth no matter what the consequences. You know, other journalists, sometimes in the West, they might say, oh, I feel scared, I feel intimidated. Being in a place which is systematically destroyed, reduced to famine, in an act of unimaginable mass slaughter, and still telling the world what's happening, that's journalism. And when so much of the Western media has covered up what's happened, these courageous Palestinian journalists have stepped up, they filled the vacuum, and the only reason we know about what's really happening to Gaza is the courage and sacrifice and determination of those journalists. They're the giants on whose shoulders we stand, and I think all journalists will learn a lesson from them. And if there aren't films made about the heroism of these journalists for many years to come, I think that'll be a travesty, because I think, you know, these are some of the biggest heroes in the history of journalism.